before, but a lot of you haven't. This is a Microsoft product where you can develop applications. And you saw when you had to choose Visual C# that it can support a lot of other programming languages too. For example, it supports Visual Basic, it supports C++, and it supports web application development with .aspx pages. And so that's why you have all of those choices when it asks you what development environment you want, because it facilitates development in so many different ways. And what a programming environment does for you is it helps you. You can write code in a text editor, okay? But it helps you, it gives you a lot of assistance with developing the interface or the form that your users are going to use. It helps you with the programming part of it, and it compiles the program so that you can install it on a computer. So my goal, and I'm hoping that we can get through this in the time we have, is that we'll make this simple application. It will all work for you guys, and then I'll show you how to publish it so that we create a setup file where you can actually install the application that you created on these machines, okay? So that everyone can see what you created. And it's pretty cool that you can create an application within this programming environment, compile it, and have setup.exe that you double click and then install and run the program on the machine. And that's what we'll try to do today, okay? So, the first thing we're going to do is click on New Project. And here's the first thing that can be problematic when you're developing an application. Take a look at the bottom. It wants to put your new application in a folder that Microsoft has chosen for you. And it's kind of buried in a number of directories. And I'd like you to save it out on the desktop instead. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on Browse. And go ahead and click on the desktop over in the left-hand navigation bar, and then just say Select Folder. And please tell me to slow down if anybody's not caught up with me. Okay. And then, so now notice it knows to save it to the desktop. Now we're going to name it something that makes sense given what our application is going to do. I just called mine GovSchool. You can use your creativity, okay? You can name it whatever you want, as long as you know, you can recognize the name that you've given it. Okay, so we're creating a Windows Form application named GovSchool that's going to be created on our desktop, and we can go ahead and click OK. Okay, so what it's done now is it's taken us into the development environment, and you can see it knows that we're going to want a form, which is basically the screen that your user sees when he or she interacts with your application. And I'll talk about the other windows there too, but for a second I want to minimize this and show you what got created on my desktop too. Okay, so I'm just going to minimize Visual Studio, and notice, let's see, here is, you should see your new folder. I've got several folders, and if you open it up, you'll see that it created quite a lot of stuff for you. The .sln file is the solution file that you can double click to get back into your application, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. If you double click on the GovSchool folder, notice there's a lot of stuff there that the development environment has already done for you. And notice that first form that we're probably going to use to design our only form is already there. And other files that Visual Studio needs to create the project have been created by default. So that's one of the reasons that you use a development environment. It does so much for you. Okay, so I'm going to close that down. I just wanted to show you that it created the folder in the right place. And now, what we're going to do is, I'm going to make my form a little bit bigger, and you can too. And this is a GUI interface, and that just means that we're going to be dragging objects onto our form, and it's really easy to create a nice looking form without any programming skill at all in this environment. It's what the form does for you that you have to program, and our programming will be very simple. Okay, so the first thing I want you to notice is that over here there are two screens. One is called the solution screen, and that's where you see all of the files and folders that we just saw out in the folder itself on the desktop. And then we're going to be working with this other component of the right side called properties a lot as we create our application. And these are properties that you can set to give whatever object that's currently on your screen the look and attributes that you want. And so we want to do some things with this form first of all. Okay, so we're going to use the properties to do that. And the first thing we're going to do is, and I want you to notice something about these properties before we start setting them. Right now, I am seeing them in alphabetical order. Okay, so I believe that that's alphabetical order. Okay, there are two ways to see the properties, and you can choose which one you like best. I'm just going to, now it is in alphabetical order, and I find that a little bit easier to use. How are you guys doing with the properties window? Okay.
Am I supposed to have all that stuff?
Yeah, and you should see it if you have the form selected. That's the thing about the objects in Visual Studio. You have to select them before you see their properties, okay? And you can get confused and have one object selected and be setting properties for another object, and that doesn't go well. So we're going to be careful about selecting. We only have one object so far, and that object is a form. And we're going to set some things. For example, the default font for this development environment for a form is 8.25 points, which I think is way too small. So we're going to increase the font. We're going to give it a nice background color, and I want you to use your creativity with the background colors, okay? And we're going to give it a default text color too. And make sure that your text color works well with your background color, meaning that you've got to be able to read your text. Okay, so let's set those properties. So we're going to go over here, and we're going to find where it says font. And do you notice the little plus sign next to font? Go ahead and expand that. And then you'll see that there is a separate property for size. And we're just going to go ahead and type in 12 there. And then you can just press enter. Now your form gets bigger because it's working with a bigger font. So I'm just going to decrease my form size a little bit. And pretty much everything we work with in this development environment, we're going to be able to drag and drop. Okay, so we've set the font size now. The next thing we want to do, and this is good programming form, every object that you create while you're developing an application, you should give a meaningful name to. And the reason that you should give them all meaningful names instead of form 1, which this is right now, is because you may need to refer to them in your programming code, and you want to be able to understand which object you're working with from using its name. So we're going to use standard naming conventions, and so I'm going to name this FRM, all in lowercase, clearly short for form. And then I'm going to call it Gov School. And notice everything after the FRM, I'm using camel case for. For those of you who have programmed before, what is camel case?
Instead of spacing, you just use capital letters.
Yeah, so I've got FRM, all in lowercase, which tells me what kind of object I'm working with, a form. And then I've got gov with a capital G and school with a capital S to make it more readable. Okay, so these are draggable. There you go, so we're just gonna put it back in its place. Okay, so one of you just had properties pop up in a place that you didn't want it. And I just wanted you to see that if I go to the properties title bar, I can drag it wherever I want on the screen. It's just that it happens by default to be in this place. So don't be afraid if your windows move around. You can always get them back to the place that you want them to be. Okay, so we've given it a good name. And now, and we've set its font for 12-point font. Now we're going to give it a nice background. All right. How are you guys doing? Any questions so far?
It's not the same, like after you hit it.
You have to go up and go, like, is it Thursday day?
It's what I see as the text in the title area of the form. Now let's give it a good background color. So we're going to go and find the background property. A drop-down arrow. You can pick all kinds of cool colors if you go over to web. I was trying in my application last night to use Governor School Tennessee Tech colors. So I'll probably stick with that and use some kind of purple. Okay. So did everybody see where to go for that? It's back color. And you guys can pick whatever color you want. And then we're going to pick a font color or a fore color that will be legible with that back color. So back we need to go. Okay. Here we have right underneath font, and I'm going to collapse font for a second. Do you see something called fore color? That's going to be what your text displays in. As you can see, it's by default black. But we can make it any color we want. And I tried to go with purple and kind of a cream to, once again, reflect Tennessee Tech. So I'm probably going to do that again. So let's see, maybe I'll go with more of an orange. Okay. And believe me, my color sense is not really to be emulated. Go ahead and pick your own colors. But when I start typing something on the form, I'll assess again whether that color text is going to work well with my form. So do you all have, at this point, you should have a background for your form, you should have your form named, and the right text up in the form title bar. You should have 12-point font, and you should have selected a text color that you think will work well with the background color that you have chosen. Everybody have that?
Do you want 12 font or 12-point font?
Doesn't matter. It does not matter to me. As long as it's big enough to see, because 8.25 is kind of small. Okay. Okay. The first thing we're going to do, and here I'm going to need to enlist your social media capabilities, which I'm sure are fantastic. Most of you probably have a picture of yourself that you can grab from Facebook or somewhere else, right? Okay, you can use whatever picture you want. This is supposed to be fun, so are you guys pretty familiar with uploading and downloading to social media? Okay, why don't you download a picture of yourself just onto the desktop, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so everybody acquire their picture. Yeah, you can use a group photo. I mean, really, it doesn't matter to me what photo, except that the page is going to be about you. So they might be confused. Which one is you? Let me know when you guys have finished downloading your pictures, and we'll proceed to incorporating that into your application.
Dude, this one's too artsy though.
Mr. Akins gave me some of your pictures, so one of you is going to be my guinea pig. Sorry to say.
That one. I did that one with like my face. Oh god, I don't know my Instagram. Stop.
Just put it on your desktop for now, okay? We'll move it in just a second. Okay, I'm just going to kind of close my eyes and pick someone. Whoops. Okay, this was the closest one. So this is, well, maybe you guys can tell me once I load him into my application. So does everybody have a picture on their desktop?
It's hard to pick a picture.
Okay, well, okay. Don't spend too much time picking a glamour shot, okay? Just pick one because you're basically the only person who's going to see this application unless you want to distribute it to other people to see your information. So just save it onto your desktop or someplace that you can remember how to retrieve it. Your desktop. Just right on your desktop.
Where do we put it in the properties thing, like which things?
No,
Oh, it doesn't go under a property that we have yet. Okay, yeah. So I just need you to have acquired the pictures. I can see that this picture acquisition process is going to take a while. Okay, I'm gonna speed you guys up by beginning to incorporate the picture into the application. Okay?
my Instagram's adorable.
All right. So the first thing we're going to do is add a picture. And to do that, we need to go over, take a look at the left-hand side of your screen, and you should see a little tab that says Toolbox. Go ahead and click on that. All right. And then take a look on that tab. There should be a little push pin. Go ahead and click on that so that that window just stays visible for you, because this is where we're going to drag all kinds of controls onto our application that we need to display pictures or text. And go ahead and expand common controls. Okay? And the next thing we're going to do is, there's something called a picture box. Go ahead and drag the picture box onto your form. Okay.
How do I resize my form?
How do you resize? You can just drag it.
I don't know if I'm doing something wrong.
Okay, let me take a look. Yeah, it's enormous, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hold on. I'm just trying to find its dimensions here. Yeah. Let's do this, and let's see where it is. How's that?
That's good.
Oh, it downloaded all of my Instagram photos. Great. It's great.
Okay, so does everybody have the picture box on there? The first thing we're going to do with it is kind of make it the size we want our picture to be, and we can just resize it by pulling its handles. I'm going to make my picture about this big. You can decide on the size you want. Just don't make it so big that you can't put anything else on your form. And notice, now that I have the picture box selected, I see properties for picture box 1. And the first thing we're going to do is rename it, because we know that we need to rename all the objects in our programming environment to something that is more informative than picture box 1. So I'm going to go to the name, and I'm going to call it Pick Student. And you can call it Pick Myself or Pick Me, okay?
Is there a way to?
Yeah. I'm going to be talking about how you can address it. Okay, so for those of you who are kind of working ahead and have questions about how to do things we haven't gotten to, save them until we get to them, because everybody's going to have a problem with that. Okay, so first we've named it. Next we're going to notice that we have an image location, or also an image property. Go to the image property, and when you click on the value, do you see those dot dot dots? Click on the dot dot dots. Now, we're going to say, oh, okay. Let's cancel this out because there's something we've got to do first. Cancel. Okay. The first thing we're going to do is create a folder to put our picture in. Okay? So everybody with me? One of the things about programming is that you want to keep a neatly organized program environment, meaning the Solution Explorer. And typically, a good programmer will have an images folder into which all images go. So we're going to right-click where on mine it says GovSchool with a little C# icon in front of it. And we're going to say Add, New Folder. And we're going to call that new folder Images. Okay. And then I'm gonna kind of resize this. I can, you know how I said to put the image on the desktop? Now I can drag that image into that images folder. So go find your image on the desktop and just drag it into the images folder. And so then you should see the images folder with one image inside of it. You're not going to see the image yet because we haven't paired it up with the picture box, but you will. Everybody have their image in the images folder? Okay. No? If you do, I think I kind of have to lead you through the next step, so just hold on for a second. Okay. 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 Yeah, I don't want you to drag it into this folder. I want you to drag it into programming environment. So wherever that picture is, okay. I'm just going to drag it right here into images. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Well, how does it on you?
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Have you
Okay, so
pulled
just
it? You haven't created an images folder yet?
Well, how did you do it?
I want you to spill it out and smoke it.
It says do not copy. No, I just like previously.
So what I did was.
Yours said do not copy.
Exactly.
I was waiting. How'd you reach your goal? I messed up. My face is like. I don't know how to go back to the.
Okay. Well, we're going to do it kind of the official program. And this is like a yeah, you can go and just goes into the trash
I helped you.
All right. So hopefully you've got your image in the folder. And what we're going to do now is associate it with the picture box. Okay, so make sure your picture box is selected. And now go to, for all of you guys who just copied the photo into Visual Studio, it's not a good idea to do that because with programming you need to import the resource, and go through kind of an official process of associating it with the program. So that's what we're about to do right now. So you should see the image property, click on the triple dots. Now we're going to click on local resource.
Where was image property?
Okay. Do you have your picture box selected? Okay, so the image property it's just called image.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, and now we're going to click, if you click over on its value, notice it's none right now because we don't have any picture associated with it. Now we're going to click on the dots, and we're going to click on local resource. We're going to click on import, and we're going to go to our application. So whatever you've named your application, notice it's on the desktop. Mine is called GovSchool. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to open it up again. I see my images folder. I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to select my picture and say open. And then I'm going to say okay. And right now I see nothing good, and I'm going to talk about how to make the picture fit into my picture box in just a second. But do you all have a picture associated that is inside your program with your picture box at this point? Okay, great. Okay, so now what I'm seeing is a wall. So clearly, this isn't the way I want my picture to look. And the way that we can adjust it is there's a property called size mode. So right now it says normal. Go ahead and just work your way through these. Go to stretch image. So we've got our picture in the picture box. And now we're going to go to the next step, and let me just show you what I've got next. We'll probably, given the lack of time, we may only do 2 of these. And notice what we're going to do next. This is called, this boundary here is called a group box, and you can use it to kind of organize your screen. And then what I've done is put a text box inside the group box that's read-only, so that just anyone can't come up and change your contact info, etc. So we've got a read-only text box that can scroll, and then we'll use this text box to fill in information. So we're going to go ahead and create a couple of these, and you can pick any names, any interests, or you don't have to. What I'm trying to say is, you don't have to stick with the names for these groups, and you don't have to put in the same information that I have. Okay, so the next thing is we're going to create a group. And let me get back to this. And that's notice under the common controls, there's a group called containers. We're going to expand that. And here's the group box. You can either drag it or just double click it to get it onto your application, and then you need to put it where you want it. And so I'm going to put that group box, I guess, right about here, and I'm going to make it bigger. Okay. And, I can always resize it. The first thing I want to do is give it a good name. Did everybody get their group box on there? Okay, good. So make sure that it's selected, and we're going to go up and give it a good name, which is GRP. And I guess I'm going to call this activities. And so we'll put in activities into this group box. And of course, it says group box 1 right now, even though we've changed its name, because it's the text property we need to change. And so I'm going down to text, and I'm going to call it activities in the text box. So now it says activities. Anybody having any trouble finding those properties to change the text box? Group box, sorry. With the text box. Just type in whatever you want in the text property. Did I see another hand up in this row? Okay.
This doesn't look really nice.
Under full color. So you have to use the
That would be awesome. It's gonna be called like Texas. Look at that picture.
Okay, is there a question here too?
Oh, dang.
We look pretty fine. Give me this.
He's happy.
And then got it.
Background color.
There's one picture. What color is yours?
Mine's stone. Do I?
I got zoomed in. I was like, oh my god. Like, and I changed the color.
They do that.
Alright, this looks really good.
Yeah.
Oh, I like the elephant. Wait, no, that was.
Line text box inside of it. And so I'm going to select my picture box, my group box, and I'm going to go up to Common Controls, and I'm going to double click on text box. Okay. So I've just put a text box inside my group box, and I'm going to make it so that it almost fills up the group box. So I'm just going to resize it. And right now, it won't let me make it deeper because I haven't told it should be a multi-line text box yet. So we've got to go over and do some things to the text box in properties. So the first thing we're going to do is give it a good name because we will actually program to this. We're going to call it TXT Activities or whatever your group box is. So now we have a good name for our text box. And then we're going to go down to multi-line. There's a multi-line property, and we're going to change it from false to true. And when we change it to true, then we get resize handles that will allow us to make it about the same size as the group box that it's in. So you can see we haven't done a bit of programming yet. All we're doing is setting up our form and getting it ready for it to do something. Now, the thing about my text box is that it has a different background color than my form, and I'd kind of like it to have the same background. So I've got my text box selected, and I'm going to go to back color, and I'm going to choose exactly the same back color that I use for my form, if I can remember what that is. Pretty sure it was something like violet. Nope.
Let's try it.
Here we go. So it was medium orchid. So I'm just giving the text box the same back color as my form. And then I'm going to get rid of the border on the text box because I don't really want to see that either. So I'm going to go to border style. And right there, I did not have my text box selected, so I wasn't seeing the right properties. So I'm going to go to border style, and I'm going to say none. Then I don't see the borders of my text box at all. And I'm going to do one last thing. I'm going to make it scrollable. So I'm going to go to the scroll bars property and put in a vertical scroll bar so that if I put in a lot of information, it will scroll with me. So now I've got a text box, that has a good best practices name. It is multi-line, it has a scrollable vertical bar. It has the right background, and I need one more thing. I want to make it read-only so that the people who come to my application can't change the information I put in there. Okay, so I'm going to go to the read-only property and change it from false to true. Okay. I'm going to, before I answer questions, I'm going to give you one more thing to do. Go ahead and double click on a label and see if you can use the skills that you have already to give it a good name. And the good programming name for labels is LBL and then whatever you want to name it. And put your own name in it. And you can make it bigger font. Just play around with that label and I'll come around and answer questions. Saw somebody else first and I'll be right over.
So we just put our name in it?
I wanted, any? Okay, so I guess, let me just see. So we're gonna go ahead
So we put our name?
and you can size it whatever you want and then go through the same process of associated with the name. So with the name, and so we're just going to leave it in that label to tell everybody who this form is about. Okay? So now what we want to do is to add the capability when we're running the application to put some information into that activities text box. And I just want you to get a sense of whether it's going to run or not. Go ahead and click on Start. And that will actually start running your application if there are no problems with it. So what you're seeing right here is your application as it would look if somebody launched it from the desktop. Okay? So your application is running right now. And then is anybody having any problems doing that? Okay, good. Then to close it out, just use the close box.
Mine did not run.
Okay, so let's put on.
Excuse me, mine
Yeah.
didn't run.
Okay, I'll come there in just 1 second. What I'm going to do is put in a text box that we can enter information into and click a button and it will be added to the activities text box. So we're going to put another text box on. You can go ahead and keep up with us because I can diagnose the not running.
Yeah.
So we'll double click on text box again. This time we're going to use it, make it single line. And I'm going to kind of position it down at the bottom of my form. And I'm going to make it a lot wider. Okay. And then I'm going to associate a button with it that is just going to be a button that I click to add that text up into my activities box. So I've added my text box and I'm going to name it appropriately. So now I'm going up to its name and I'm saying txt add info. And that's really all I need to do with it right now. Just give it a good name. And then we're going to add a button. And this is where we're going to program our functionality. So just double click on a button. Okay. And pull that over. I've got it. You can position it wherever you want. I'm putting it over to the right.
Where'd you get that button from?
It's right over here under Common Controls, just like all the other controls we've been using. So it just says Button, and just double click on it, and that will give you the button. I'm going to change the background of the button to go along with my color scheme here. So I've got my button selected. The first thing I'm going to do is call it BTN Add Info. And then I'm going to make sure that it's displaying the color I want. Okay, I'm just going to make it a really dark color. And then I'm going to put the right text in it. And that text, and remember I've got to have the button selected, is going to be set in the text property. So I'm going down to the text property. And instead of button 1, I want it to add information or add info. Okay, so how's everybody doing with having a text box and a button that we can actually use to add info? Now we're going to have to do some programming. And what we're going to program to is an event. This is an object-oriented, event-driven programming language. And the event that we're going to program to is somebody clicking on that button. So to get to the programming code, we're going to double-click on the button itself. And that's going to take us to the programming form. And notice there's a lot of stuff already on there, but we're going to be programming to the button Add Info Click.
I don't have a button.
Yeah, don't worry about it, just do it. It's more important for you to get it.
How do I know? You say these nuts and this, I'm gonna kick you in the face.
They have a sound in there.
So under name here, it says,
Into this text box and put it in this text box, okay? And we want them to add multiple lines. So what we're going to do, this is why we took care to properly name our text boxes. I'm going to reference, and I can just start typing. I'm going to start TXT. Oops. And notice it gives me something that's called IntelliSense. And you should, if you name your text boxes the same way I did, see both of them. We're going to select Add Info dot text. And that's how we can retrieve whatever anybody has put into that text box. And what we're going to do is, I'm just going to move this down for a second. My line of code isn't complete yet. I am going to create a string variable that can hold the contents of whatever someone has put into that text box. So I'm going to say string, because when we create variables in programming, you have to identify what data type they hold. And I'm just going to say string info to add. And then at the end of every line in a C# programming module, you have to put a semicolon. That's how the program understands that you've ended a line of code. Now what I'm going to do is put my cursor in front of text add info.text, and I'm going to say info. I'm going to refer to the variable I just made, and I'm going to put equals text add info.text, and I'm going to end the line with a semicolon. So now what I've just done here, and let me make this a lot bigger, is I have declared a variable that holds text, and whatever they have typed into the text box to add the text, I put in the variable. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say text activities, because that's our big multi-line text box. dot text equals whatever is in my string variable, which is info to add. And then I'm going to end it with a semicolon. So what we've done is pull information out of the one text box they can type into, put it in a variable, and then put the information in that variable into the text box that is read-only, okay? So let's see if it works for us right now, okay? So I know for some of you, your programs aren't running, but I'd like to see whether the majority of you, this will work for. So let's click on Start. And now type something into the text box. So this could be Governor's School. And then click Add Info, and it should appear in your text box that is in Activities. Okay, did that work for you?
Yeah.
All right. It's good when it works, isn't it? It's pretty cool. And that's
How
the
do you say that?
feeling
It's just-
that if you get into
Do you want to
programming,
save it or just?
you get all the time because it's like magic, but you've made it happen. Okay.
Go for it. Go for it.
Okay, yours didn't work. Okay, so I'm going to come around and talk with people about why theirs aren't working. There's something that we can do to keep adding more lines. Let's see what happens if I put in another activity. I'm just going to put in, what is an extracurricular activity that one of you is in high school?
Drama.
Drama. Okay, so I'm going to put in drama here and add info, and we don't want that to happen, right? We don't want it to replace what's already there, and so the last thing we're going to do is make it so that it doesn't replace what's already there, and then I'll come around and help you guys if things aren't running, okay? So, we've got to go back into the program code, we've got to stop it from running. And now we just have to tweak our code a little bit to not write over what we've already put in. And what we're going to do is to add information on. All we have to do is to put a plus sign in front of the equal sign. But then we want something else. We want to force it to go on a new line. Okay? So I put a plus in front of my equal sign, and then I put my cursor in after info to add, and I'm going to put in a plus sign there. And I'm going to say environment. And it should get, you shouldn't have to type in that whole word because it'll give you IntelliSense, and you can just press tab, dot, new line. And what that's going to do is it's going to add another line so that when you add the next activity, it goes on to the next line. Why don't you guys who have your programs running, see if that works for you?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'll come around and answer questions just 1 second. I'm going to put in drama, add info, and then I'm going to put in Governor's School, add info. And it can just keep on going like that because I'm sure you all have many, many activities. And that's what we have the scroll bar for, so that you can just keep scrolling. So that gives you a sense of accomplishment, doesn't it? Yeah, it's pretty cool. And I will come around and help everybody, but let me just show you how easy it is for those of you who have it running to now, we're going to stop here. I think we've done enough. You can always expand it. Oh, you don't want to stop?
Now we know how to do it.
Okay. I just want to show you, don't you want to know how to publish the application so that you can install it on this computer and run it from the computer? That's pretty cool. And let's do that. So, because that's a handy thing to know too, that what you've written can be installed on the computer like any application that you buy. So stop running it. And now, go to project. I'm sorry.
This table isn't working, do we still do it?
No, you shouldn't do it because I'll come around and help you. Yeah. Okay, so go to build. And what you're going to do is go to publish. And whatever your application's name is, you should see. So we're going to click on publish. Okay. Now, it says specify the location. We're going to browse and we are going to put it in on the desktop. So to find the desktop, you need to expand your name and then expand desktop. And we're actually going to create a new folder in desktop. So I've selected desktop, I'm going to right click. I hope I can do that. Oh, I can do it down here. Okay, so I think I might need to actually create that folder first. So let me see if I can go out and do that. Cancel it and we'll come back. I just want to create a folder that I've named. Okay, so I'm going out and I'm just creating a new folder. So I right-clicked on the desktop, I'm creating a new folder, and I'm going to say, install app. Okay, then I can tell it to put all the files that we are going to create in the install app folder. Everybody with me who can get their program to run? Okay.
What'd you name it?
I named it install app. You can name it whatever you want. Now we're going to go back. Are you guys ready to go back and publish again? Okay, let's go to build, publish. And now we're going to browse and find our install app folder on the desktop. It's under your name, desktop, expanded desktop, and then you should see it install app and choose install app. And then say open. Okay. Then if you've done that, if you told it where to put the files, let's click on next. We're going to install it theoretically from a CD-ROM or DVD-ROM, so we can just click next. We're not going to check for updates. Click next. And it says, okay, it's going to be published to and finish. Now, I want you to see what it has done. Okay, so we're going to minimize it in Visual Studio. Go out and open up your install app folder. And there's your setup.exe. And let me just show you what will happen if I double click on that. And you guys can too. I'm going to double click on it and it's going to say, it's going to think. And it's going to say, are you sure? The publisher cannot be verified. I know I'm the publisher, so I'm going to say install. And now that application is running from your desktop. Anybody who comes in and uses these computers will see your application. Okay? And you would uninstall it just the same way that you uninstall other programs. So if you don't want to leave it on the desktop because you don't want people to pull it up, do you guys all remember how to uninstall applications from Windows? Hopefully it will let us do it. Let's go to the control panel. And let's go to Programs and Features. And you will see it. Notice, here's my GovSchool app. Do you guys see it in your programs? Okay, so it got installed. And I'm going to see whether I can uninstall it. So I'm just going to click on Uninstall Change. It's taken a long time. And it says, are you sure you want to remove the application from this computer? Okay. And it uninstalled GovSchool. Okay? So you just learned not only how to make an application, but how to create an executable file that you could sell to other people. Okay? And then you created a package where they could just double-click setup.exe, install it on their computer, and uninstall it like any other program. Okay? So I'm hoping that you have a sense of satisfaction about it all. I know for some of you, I'm now going to come around and answer questions. For the rest of you, I think that we've done enough. Unless you want to continue to play with it and see what other capabilities you can add to it. That's fine with me too. But right now, it's time for me to go around and help people troubleshoot whose applications weren't working. It's been a pleasure. I hope it opened. Sometimes when you learn something new, and a lot of you are new to programming, it clicks and you think, this is something I'd like to do more of. And I hope at least some of you felt that way about it, because not only is it a fun skill to have, it is a skill that will pay you a very good salary. right now in our business information technology major, we have students leaving our undergraduate program earning $60,000 in their first year out because they know how to program. So what you want are skills that not everybody has, and programming skills are skills that not everybody has. So if you like it, really think about investing some time and taking more classes in it, and it's a great thing to be good at because you're building and making something. So it's been a pleasure to work with all of you, and I'm going to come around to those of you who are having problems. Tell me your name.
Reagan.
Reagan is first, and then I will kind of make my way around. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Oh yeah, of course.